my closest funny story to that is for one of the courses of my private dinners, I serve bread and butter. And I serve the butter on individual plates, and then I have to go back to the kitchen to get the bread.
Yep. And
I've had just one time in 4 years of private dining where I went to the kitchen to get the bread, and I come back and I notice on someone's plate the butter's missing. And his wife just points at him and he's like, he ate the butter. So this man just scooped up like...
Thinking it was like a cheese or something.
It was insane to me. Yeah. But ever since then, I would come out and I would warn people that on their plate is butter and I'm gonna go get the bread.
Yeah. Okay, hello everybody out there in Riff Nation, Riff Land. Are we Riff Country?
Riff World, Riff Universe,
District,
the Riffiverse,
region of Drift. I don't know. Anyway, hello everyone out in online land somewhere. Welcome to the Riff. My name is Gary O'Brien, your host, and with me to my left is my friend, my co-host, Jeremy. How are you today? How's it going? What have you seen? What have you heard? What have you done?
Really good. We did some travel recently. Went to Egypt. That was wild and crazy. Nice. And I won't get into that because that's a huge story. But I want to get into this because I'm actually super excited because we have a chef on today, which is totally awesome. And as you can tell from my physique, I'm a food fan. I consume great amounts of it, and I put my carrot shirt on today.
I didn't notice that until now. No, you just mentioned it.
On her behalf.
Carrot shirt.
And it's great that I have her because I actually really need help in this department because, so I'll tell you a story. We went out for a family birthday party and we went to the Keg. And we were having a meal and it was nice and whatever. And they brought out this cake and so I'm eating the cake or whatever, and boom, stick in my mouth. And then my son says to me, he's like, Dad, you just ate a candle. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And he's like, you did. He's like, you ate a candle. And I'm like, shut up, right? So whatever. And then I'm like chewing, and then I'm like, and I literally pulled a wick out. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I can't ever talk about what's good food and bad food because I didn't even know I was eating. It was so embarrassing. Oh my God.
The wax was on the menu that night. Yeah.
So I'm going to need a lot of help to get through today's episode. And so I'll let you introduce our guest.
Right. Well, before you do, if I can squeak in one little joke. You mentioned Egypt.
Yes.
All right. So you mentioned Egypt. So I heard that they found a new king in a tomb in Egypt recently.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was like they found the tomb and they noticed that it was covered in like a gold wrapping, right? And they opened up and they found the remains inside covered in chocolate and nuts. Can you believe that? Guess what what they called it?
What?
Ferrero Rocher. Oh my God. I should just leave now. Shouldn't I? Should just walk out and just say goodbye right now. Actually, I got a laugh from Tracy.
That's a dad joke.
Tracy's laugh. It was a dad joke.
I shouldn't be laughing, but I am.
Okay, well, we'll go with that. All right, let's get to our guest because I'm excited for this one. This is I think this is going to be a little bit of an education for us too as well, which I really value that. So today on The Riff, we have a Toronto chef who is blowing up on Instagram with her viral videos with over 160,000 plus followers, taking her high-end skills from places like Michelin-recommended Aloette restaurant and coupling it with her passion for social work. She volunteers weekly at the Fort York Food Bank, taking whatever ingredients they have and creating gourmet meals for its patrons. She's a private chef, recipe developer, and food entrepreneur, creating food experiences for intimate personal dinners. Our guest studied social work at the University of Guelph, graduated culinary school at George Brown. She's been covered in media through Toronto Life magazine, Now magazine, Foodism Toronto, Globe and Mail, Toronto Star, CTV's The Social, CBC News, and other YouTube platforms. And now, of course, inside our studio, I'd like to welcome today Maddy Goldberg. Maddie, welcome to The Riff.
Thank you so much for having me.
Holy smokes, what a list.
Wow.
That was a mouthful for sure.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So how are you doing? I'm
good. I'm better after that wax story.
Oh, I know.
that actually
We can't depend on Jeremy's palate here.
Oh my gosh,
so
that's the
embarrassing.
funniest
He's not
thing
determining
in the
wax
world.
from food.
And here before that, it was like one of those wine guys. This is a good wine. Ever since I've stopped any of that now, I don't say anything. It's just
I'm honestly gonna have to retell that one. I'm a private chef, and I've had my closest funny story to that is for one of the courses of my private dinners, I serve bread and butter. And I serve the butter on individual plates, and then I have to go back to the kitchen to get the bread.
Yep.
And I've had just one time in 4 years of private dining where I went to the kitchen to get the bread, and I come back and I notice on someone's plate the butter's missing. And his wife just points at him and he's like, he ate the butter. So this man just scooped up like
Thinking it was like a
like a
cheese or
What he
something.
thought it was the upper
insane
yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
But ever
my
since
gosh.
then, I would come out and I would warn people that on their plate is butter, and I'm gonna go get the bread.
Wow.
So now
that's
you can
not
add,
quite the wax. so
Please don't
actually
eat the
that's funny.
candles. Those are
Yeah.
for light, not for
Like for Jeremy, we have that. There's that show, Cake or Not Cake. We have
Yeah,
to
I
guess
just learned
the
about
art,
this show.
food, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
For Jeremy, it's wax or not wax.
wax or not wax.
Jeremy, are you eating wax or not wax?
Wax off. Wax on?
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's
So-
brutal.
I love how it
Wax
took you
or not
until-
wax?
It also it
Starring
scares me that
Jeremy.
it took you until the wick to realize that your son
See,
is
that's
right.
what blew my mind because
Yeah.
I'm like, because when he said it, I knew he was. I'm like, wait a minute, did I? And I couldn't feel any. And I said to him, I go, I didn't feel anything. Like, how did I not feel it?
So funny.
Yeah. You're flossing your
As
teeth.
soon as it came out, I was like, I'm a piece of shit. Like, oh my God, like, it was so embarrassing.
All right.
Oh my God. Anyway.
Okay. Let's get to Maddie here. While we have her here for a limited time. So I want to start back at the beginning.
Yes.
So you're a little kid growing up. Where was that relationship, the earliest connection to food for you?
Yeah, for me, I would say I was a kid that was obsessed with eating. Quite literally, my parents told me when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I ate a 12-ounce prime rib. No, and they said that
6 or
everyone
7?
Well, how do you look like this and not like this? Like,
I've worked out a lot. That the restaurant, they literally were concerned about like if I was okay. And yeah, everyone was blown away. So I think my early connection
awesome.
was actually just being obsessed with eating. And I remember even, I guess in my family, I stood out as the one who enjoyed eating the most. And I also just appreciated good food, which as a kid that, has quite the spectrum. But I would watch my mom come home from work and she would be hungry and she had a full day at work and she was exhausted and she would take like a piece of whole wheat bread.
Yep.
She would toast it and it would be like half toasted. She would take peanut butter and smear it and it wouldn't even touch the corners. And I was like 5 years old and I'd watch her and I was like, she just toasted it a little bit better and smeared the peanut butter so that it reached all 4 corners. And maybe if she added a little salt or honey on top, like I was already just realizing like kind of.
You were like a food critic at that point in your life, yeah.
Literally. And I also think that I just saw sort of like a lot of potential when it comes to ingredients, and it's more sort of what you do with them. So I'd watch my mom sort of make this toast really quickly and think, if I'm gonna make that toast for myself, I'm just gonna do it in a different way. I think it just comes from appreciating good food.
So there was
around,
no
I
other
guess.
cooks in your family or anything?
Honestly, not really. I always like to say, shout out to my mom. She wasn't a bad cook by any means. I think she was just busy and her meals were kind of just like quick meals. And then once actually later on in high school, she started to cook a lot more and we sort of bonded over that and that was great. Mm-hmm. But as a kid, it was just easy meals. So for me to explore good food, it meant starting to learn to cook. And when I was really young, I definitely had a fascination with how to restaurants make food taste so good. And I would think about that, and that sort of started my, I would say, earliest endeavors in cooking, which was just trying to recreate food that I'd eaten. But at the time, again, I was a kid, so it was literally like Subway sandwiches, like a Big Mac, silly like fast food recreations.
Recreate those things, yeah.
Neat.
How well did they turn out? If you can make a Big Mac at home, I'm staying home.
No, pretty good. Also, my mindset, and this was adopted later on more in university when I was also paying for my ingredients, but it was like I can spend XYZ on fast food, but then, I'm going to eat it and eventually it's going to be gone. Whereas I always felt like if I'm making it myself, it normally tastes better, maybe different, but same but different. But the biggest was I can make like 3 burgers. And like it was almost came out of just a joy of eating. So it's like the creation element behind it was just an obvious, if I want to eat good food often, I kind of have to learn to cook.
Yeah. I like how you mentioned the creation of it all, because One of the things I wanted to, for you to expand on is, in terms of the creation, we always kind of talk about the artistic endeavor kind of thing on this show. And how do you see it in terms of, as of a chef, where do you see it as a medium, as a result, as the artwork itself? Is it in the ingredients? Is it in the process of cooking it? Is it the presentation that you're giving to the patron, like to enjoy it? Where do you see the art? If that makes sense.
That's a tough question. I think there's
like
elements,
in terms of brush strokes, where are your brush strokes to make it come to life? You know?
I mean, it starts with, I guess, sort of the way your brain is perceiving ingredients. Because I think a lot of people, and this is something that I think a lot of people have found really interesting about the way I approach food, and especially with a lot of the videos I put out, which is if I see an ingredient and there's something obvious to do with it. For example, if I saw a sweet potato, a lot of people think like make soup or make sweet potato fries. Probably like 99% of people would think one of those two things. Whereas my brain, I guess, gets a lot of joy of thinking in some opposite direction. Like, okay, how could I make like a risotto or some like fried sweet
So was
potato?
that like an everyday, like I know as a musician myself, there's a practice element to it where I would sit every day for hours and practice, or Gary would paint and he would like work on it every day. Was it an everyday thing, or is this just kind of a...
This is like, I would say what we're talking about is sort of over a really long period of time. So it took a shift.
Is there a practice though? Like, is there a form
yes
of
and no.
How does a chef practice? Like,
I mean, I would say a lot of chefs are mostly practicing because when you work as a chef, you're working probably 12 to 14-hour days.
Yes.
5 to 6 days a week. So the practice for most people comes out of just experience working.
But isn't a lot of that, like, there's a lot of chefs that are doing it like as a trade, that it's like a utility almost.
Yeah,
so it's the same menu, the same production. And then there's a whole other group like yourself that is doing new things and finding new ingredients and finding new, like those seem like two very different things to me.
Yeah, I think they're massively different. I also think even myself in the way that I've connected with food and say like the practice that I took to get to where I am was also really different than most of the chefs who think of food as that sort of art, and then also very different from the chefs that are thinking of it as a trade. Like, I would say that for myself, a lot of my joy of cooking came out of the joy of eating. But then once I realized, and this was sort of like a slow transition through high school into university, it was in university where I started to realize that I actually think I like cooking more than eating. And that was the first time that I realized maybe I should pursue this as a career. And I think for me at that time, I was practicing every day, but it was just a joy of feeding like my friends and also a bit of a boredom in university. It was, I think I have a lot of energy, and that's a good thing because a lot of chefs do, and you need a lot of like, especially like physical energy.
Late night,
Exactly. But I think I had a lot of energy, and I found in university, I was using a little bit of it in my program, but I had a lot to expel. And so I started cooking a lot, and I kind of was teaching myself food without thinking too hard about what I was doing. And by that, I mean, pretty much every single day I was cooking, if not cooking multiple things a day. But more importantly, I was kind of trying to think about every single food in the world that I liked, but mostly like I pretty much like all food. And I would write it down, I would make a list, and I would cook it. So eventually I got to a point where I literally made every single thing in the world I can think of.
Wow.
And so it's sort of like a practice, but it came out just fun. At that time, I had no idea I was going to work as a professional chef.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's very similar to music or paintings too. Like I remember we were in school for graphic design and stuff, and one of the things was copying a great master's work, or cover band. You know, that's very common to learn a guitar through learning Rush's songs or Led Zeppelin. I always use Rush because it's but no, it's like there's an element of mimicking. That you learn, okay, once you do that, it's like, what happens now if I do this and this and this and this and this?
Exactly.
And that's where the individuality comes from, which is really cool.
100%. I just wrote, I put out like a newsletter every week, and my last newsletter talked about that, where I would say my earliest forms of creation, because at first it's sort of the practice of learning different recipes and how other people do them. And then at the very earliest stages, I started to merge recipes. And so I recently came up with a recipe. It's an Italian soup dumpling.
I saw that one. Yeah, I was like, that looks delicious. Oh my God.
It speaks a lot to the first time I started actually creating on my own, because it's actually kind of a simple concept. It's like there's Italian sausage pasta, and then you have soup dumplings. And if you just merge these two items, technique of soup dumplings, flavor of the pasta, put it together. Now I've created a completely unique dish. That was all my first recipes that I came up with.
How'd they turn out?
They were so good.
I want to know too.
I'm starting to
Yeah, they were so good. Yeah, I should have brought you guys some. I'm sorry.
Now,
put it to work.
Now, and even before cooking and food and all that stuff, you actually took social work at university.
Yeah.
So how does that feed into? There's a
Look at you
on there. Oh my god.
Oh my God.
There you go. See, another couple of points on the board there for me.
Billy O'Brien would be happy with this day. This old man just.
So anyway, for the social work part, how does that feed into this kind of almost like a calling, or is it kind of a natural direction for you to kind of help out at like the food bank and do those kinds of things?
Yeah, I think when I was young, I had a interesting fascination with just people and relationships. And then once I was getting, more towards high school, I started to think about, or my parents told me to think about what I want to do. And at the time, food was merely just a fun little activity. It never even crossed my mind to become a chef. And I knew I wanted to probably do something with like talk therapy, social work. And then that kind of ended up becoming a interesting and sort of strange obsession with like addiction therapy, jail rehabilitation, safe injection sites. This was all in high school. I was like very interested in working with at-risk populations.
Where'd that come from?
I don't know.
Are you just a way nicer person than me? Or like
I actually don't know. I think I have a lot of empathy. And I think when I was in high school, especially, I remember learning about safe injection sites.
Yeah.
And there was a big debate about that at the time. And I think I just really, for some reason, as like a 16-year-old kid, felt like this is something that is really important. And I just felt so sad for people who had just tough environments and upbringings, and then having that be sort of the reality of the rest of their life.
I had a really weird, I had a really weird scenario down here. I came to a concert. It was like, I was in my 20s or maybe even 30s. And we were coming out of the show. And at one point the crowd just stopped and like, it wasn't moving for whatever reason. We just all stopped. And I happened to end up beside a homeless guy who was standing there. He's like, and he looked at me and he's like, "Oh, do you have any money or whatever?" And I honestly didn't. I usually carry cards or whatever. And I said, I'm sorry, I have nothing. I'm sorry. He's like, "Oh, that's okay." And then but because we're kind of stuck there, I said to him, I'm like, "How are you, man? You doing okay? Like, how's things?" And he looked at me. And again, this is right here. This is like Bay Street, the biggest city in Canada and all that stuff. And he said to me, he goes, "You know what?" He said, "You're the first person that has spoken to me in 2 years. Not one word. Nobody has spoken to the guy in 2 years."
Yeah.
That was maybe he's full of it a little bit. Maybe it was a long time, but his point was taken. It was a long time that nobody spoke to him, even asked, because everybody's like, "No, it's a homeless guy. There he is." But it's it kind of really sent me for a bit of a loop.
I was like very young when I volunteered for the first time for an organization called Veahafta. I think I was in grade 8, and it's a truck that drives around the city and gives out coffee and food to homeless people. Very simple. And I just go around in the van, and they actually told us that even if the person refuses food or like coffee, that's totally fine. But it's really nice to just ask them how they're doing, because that's something that people don't realize lacks like completely, which is just this idea of feeling invisible. And that stuck with me forever. So I'm actually not surprised that
it haunted me for a long time. Like I still to this day care. We usually go grab a whole pile of Tim Hortons gift cards.
Yeah, that's so nice. Yeah.
Because I know there's that whole conversation about, do you want to feed into their addiction and all that stuff with help. But it's like, I figure, a coffee and a bagel or whatever
that's amazing.
can go a long way. So now we try to hand them out as much as we can. But it's like, but it was literally that conversation with that guy that made me aware of it. I didn't really think, I think like most people, you don't think of them because they're just kind of wildlife in the city that are just like...
And I grew up in Toronto. So like,
where'd you grow up?
I grew up sort of Avenue and Lawrence area.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And I lived in the city my whole life, aside from 4 years at university. And I feel like I also sort of like you become accustomed to it. But then I guess even when I was young, I don't know, I think aside from even working with like addiction therapy, jail rehabilitation, I don't specifically know where that comes from. I think I always had a very strong desire to give back in some way.
That's great.
And I also do feel like, and this changes over time, but I feel like I've never been very driven by money as sort of like my career path. I always felt like a lot of value comes from feeling good about my day. And that actually grew more, which is sort of what led me to deciding to pursue food. But what's cool is when I was as young as high school, I had this idea, and it came out of the Live Strong bracelet, which was...
Oh, the Lance Armstrong
exactly,
thing.
the Lance Armstrong bracelet, and it raised millions of dollars for cancer. And more importantly, it was a memory for me because it was in 2005. I was in grade 5. I was like 11. And every single 11-year-old I knew spent their allowance on this bracelet. And I remember when I was in high school, I was probably 16, and I thought about how I didn't even realize when I bought that bracelet when I was 11, what the money was going towards. And I remember thinking about this idea where it's almost like tricking somebody into donating by using something that's cool. But I say tricking really lightly. It's more like joking. Like it's just sort of adding value to donation. And I remember thinking as young as high school, food is cool, and there must be some sort of element of food or working with a chef or creating big fundraising dinners that could get a lot of money fundraising for different charities. I had no idea what I would do with it. So that's like down the road. Eventually I switched over. I always thought I would be a social worker working with chefs. Eventually, through kind of my own cooking obsessions, I decided to go into the food side. But then, that eventually far down the road led me to doing a lot of what I do now, which is like even private dining. I give 10% of the cost to a charity of the host choice. Oh, wow. That's a fundraising element. And then also with the food bank, that was a huge one, volunteering at a food bank and giving back.
So it really is just part of who you are. It's like a natural calling, I guess, for you, isn't it? Like to do the social work to help out.
I think to be at where I am now, for a while when I worked in food, I lost the social work side, and I think I felt a little bit like, what did I do? And now to kind of feel like I'm starting to come full circle.
Right.
It's very exciting.
That is. And now also, too, in terms of professionally in regards to being a chef, you've obviously moved it not just in the kitchen, but online. And now, you have your Instagram account at Maddy Goldberg.
Yes.
And you also have your Substack, which is cookeat.substack.com.
Yes.
So that actually all started, I believe you were saying, from a student budget cooking, making that happen with what you had.
Yeah.
And now, so what does it say today in terms of your online presence?
Well, I think for me, I started my Instagram account when I was about 20. I was in university for social work, and I was finding myself spending every single moment of free time cooking. And I met a woman actually online, and she was like a restaurateur in Toronto, and I just thought she was cool, and we had a coffee. And I think that's something I've always done, is connect with people just for fun without wondering where it's going to go, and without knowing that coffee in a lot of ways like set my sort of career path, because she recommended starting an Instagram account just for fun, just as an outlet, but to share my food, because she thought that I cooked differently, and I think she thought or saw a lot of potential in what I do. And so I started that account as truly just like a passion project. And that's something I think, my Instagram account has taken many ebbs and flows. Mm-hmm. But what it did do is allow me to share recipes and connect with other people through food. And then kind of down the road, I started actually like a newsletter where I kind of made, I guess, like a goal to myself where I would come out with a recipe once a week. And I thought it would just sort of help me almost practice. Like we were talking a little bit about the idea of art has like a practice in it. And I think for me, that was sort of like a little self-goal practice. It holds accountability when you tell all your followers you're going to do this once a week. Mm-hmm. And then to myself, I kept doing it. Yeah. And there's tons of recipes I came up with where I'm like, oh, I definitely wouldn't have made a recipe this week, but I promised myself I would, and then it pushes you, which is cool.
Yeah, I think that's self-accountability.
It's really neat connecting the, like Instagram and stuff like that is a very me-centric, here's me doing this, here's me doing that.
Yeah.
It's cool that when you went to the social work element, so now it's you doing for someone else. Like it's you doing, that's really
the narrative.
That's what makes it a cool channel. I was looking at it, I'm going, this is what she's doing. This is really cool. Cause it's like, yes, it's interesting yes, it's interesting but it's also interesting that it's going outwards and you're doing it not just for you, but you're doing it for other people. That's really great.
I also like too, when you do film your stuff in the kitchen, I guess it's at the food bank, I would imagine, where some of those videos are shot.
The food bank one, those are all at the food bank.
And it's kind of funny because you have to do double role here in terms of, yes, you are the cook and the chef there cooking up all these wonderful things that you have at the food bank, but you also have to be an Instagram person and videotape yourself doing that, showing the ingredients that you're using and stuff like that. And I found it funny because I was watching several of them, and you have like whoever else is working
people
there.
in the
background kind of walking by going, like, what is that? What is all that about, right? So what's the challenge there in terms of you have to do both things, and how accomplish, in terms of to accomplish that, what's the challenge in putting chef and, online together?
So I would say my initial experience with that was kind of when I left restaurants, I started private dining, and I was having my Instagram account suddenly become a bit more of a business tool because I wanted to share the dinners I was cooking for private dinners, and then obviously hoping people would see something they liked and book me for a dinner. And I think that was sort of my first instances of cooking, and I realized the easiest way to actually create authentic content and content easily without sort of going out of my way is to actually film stuff I'm already going to be cooking. And so I started to film myself prepping for private dinners, but I would pick like a recipe and I would kind of create a recipe video, but it was something I already had to make for the dinner that night. Okay. So it was like doubling up. And so once I started the food bank videos, I was already, I would say, I guess, experienced enough that it felt really easy. The hardest part of the food bank videos is that for most of the footage, I'm just leaving my camera and I'm filming for a really long time. So I end up with
the editing.
That's a lot of editing. Yeah.
So I end up with a ton of footage compared to when I go at home, it's way less. And so it's really in the edit. I've been volunteering at the food bank for 4 years, and I've only started doing videos about 8 months ago.
Okay.
And part of the reason I started showing that is because I got the advice of, if I want to sort of get into the recipe development world, I should show with the people who are already interested in what I do, I should show sort of the authentic side of my cooking, which is how I cook, like when I'm just cooking for, myself or friends and family, versus just that private dinner side, which is a little bit more fine dining.
So the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
God.
There we go.
Over the top.
There we go. I'm 3 for 3 now.
Right
Right
on
on.
top with that one.
You're cut off.
Okay, maybe I should just leave. But anyway, I have more questions. Okay, so you worked at Aloette, a really kind of high-end restaurant here in Toronto, right? So what's that? Like, how did that come around? I'd be interested to hear like how you go from, elevating your game.
Yeah, how'd you get that gig?
Aloette?
That's a good gig, right? How'd you get it?
Thank you. Yeah. I think for me, I was food fan before working in food. So when I decided to go to culinary school, that was after university. I'd finished like all 4 years of university. I was a little bit older than most people in culinary school. Like I was probably 22, they were 18. What was bigger is I was like obsessed with food, and I had a good amount of experience cooking for myself. Like in university, I was studying cookbooks or textbooks actually, like from Culinary Institute of America, stuff like that. So I was like a little more advanced, and I knew I had a pretty good direction in that if I was going to do this, I was going to do it very hard, and I was going to do the best, meaning like I wanted to kind of see if I could keep up with the chefs I admired. And then from there, I would decide if I should actually work in food or if I should maybe do the social work side of things. So I kind of just thought about like my favorite restaurants in Toronto. At the time, this was probably 2018. Aloette was only maybe like 2 years old, and they'd just kind of been created, been founded because Alo, the sister restaurant, had just been named best restaurant in Canada. Oh. So it was sort of like Alo had gotten this incredible accolade, like the best you can get, and everyone was complaining that they can't get reservations at Alo, so they made Aloette the sister restaurant, and at the time it was walk-in only. It was really fast-paced service, really small dining room, a lot of turnaround, so it was like really kind of like intense, fast-paced environment, but then in the same time, you're serving like the quality of food that they're serving upstairs at Alo. So in my mind, it was like the perfect place to work. And now it's just like, how do I get a job there? But I'm pretty determined, I would say. Like most of what I've done, I've kind of been like, this is what I want to do. I set a goal and then I work backwards.
Good for you.
And I also think I genuinely get a lot of joy out of doing things, like I said, without like the direction of money. I've done a lot of things in my career for free. And just because I saw
that's
value,
usually where money comes from.
That's
when you're doing it for the right heart, the right
100%.
intention, that's almost everybody I know who's made a ton of money.
Yeah.
Most of them didn't actually set out to do that. They just were really good at what they did.
Right.
And they loved it. And
skills and talent.
It really does work.
I think also if you're going to go into something that's a labor of love, like it's good to not lose sight then of the love side of it. Like even if I always had a job in food, something that was making me money, like I'm not suggesting not working, but I think for example, I was working at a cafe when I was in culinary school. It was like just a really sort of easy brunch service type job. And when I was making money from that job, that's when I started staging at Aloette. And staging is like an internship. You work for free. It's really common.
Staging, okay.
And you sort of, what I did is I just went to the restaurant and I said, this is where I want to work. And I've just completed culinary school and I'm working at this little cafe. I don't want to be there. I want to be around people I admire and work hard. And can I stage? And they let me stage. And after it was like 4 shifts, I just kept reiterating that I really wanted to work there.
Nice.
And eventually I kind of told them, okay, I think I'm going to go get a job somewhere else. But like, call me. And they were like, actually, give us till tomorrow. And then they came back with the job. And they joked that I like kind of hired myself.
You made your own position, yeah.
I mean, they had a line cook that happened to have left, but I like to think maybe they would have kept me in the company
stepped into
anyways.
it. Yeah.
Staging. What's staging?
Yeah, staging.
What is that?
It literally just means like,
is that like an apprentice?
It means like doing a shift for free.
Oh, wow.
But
okay.
staging, a lot of like stagiaire, a lot of the foundation of French or the foundation of cooking is French.
Right. Yeah.
And it's mostly because cooking has always been a thing in restaurants, have been a thing for a long time. But once they started to sort of like make it into like an academic, something you can learn, there's a guy, Escoffier, and he created the brigade system, which is sort of a system designed off of the army. And it's the way kitchens are still run today for the most part. And it's like hierarchy system and it's sort of like command and yes, chef, that's where all that comes from.
Yeah.
And so that was always sort of like something I kind of, I guess, wanted to be a part of. And a lot of that is based in like French terms.
The ratatouille model.
It's all French. Yeah, it's all sort of like foundation is French.
That's
for
interesting.
Most
I never
culinary in terms of like academics.
Yeah.
That's so neat.
It's like it bases on a military
the brigade system.
That's
and
amazing.
That's why there's like, executive chef, chef de cuisine, sous chef, chef de partie, like it's all sort of hierarchy.
That's interesting.
Very cool.
And when you say all that kind of yes chef and all that kind of stuff, right? It makes me think back to like all those kind of, TV shows, culinary kitchen shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Cook that.
I want to know, how intense is it? How fiery is it back there in the kitchen where you think people are yelling at each other and like, really passionate and stuff like that? Because I can tell you, where I live, we have if you order takeout at the local Chinese takeout place, right? You go in there to pick it up, and if the couple that owns the place and they're working in the back, if they are yelling at each other,
crazy.
right, the food's going to be good that day.
That's so funny.
You don't want to go there when it's quiet. You want to go there when the full argument's happening because it's amazing.
Well,
How does that
go in
work?
the kitchen when Tracy's cooking.
So, like, what's the deal back there in the kitchen? Like, is it as intense as it is portrayed?
Yeah, I would say yes and no. I went into the kitchen world sort of probably at the start of a good time, meaning it's changing a lot. It definitely used to be more fiery and more sort of, they say like intense like French kitchen, which is very like, you literally get like burnt if you do something wrong. You also have to be silent, like you can't make noise.
Wow.
And you're sort of expected to kind of just be a command, like just
adds more to that military feel to it.
Earn your stripes, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I came into kitchens, the restaurant I worked in is definitely known as like a very French kitchen. Like they have that intensity, but I came in at a time where things like I was the only woman in the kitchen and, probably in some restaurants, especially longer ago, that's very negative or like you would look down upon as like weak or something. I would say they actually, very much valued that I was the only woman and they were almost nicer to me in a lot of ways because of that. I never felt like that worked against me, so that was great. But I do think in general, the intensity is something that is just sort of like passed down from, boss to CDC to sous chef. And then they kind of put that onto the line cooks and everyone's scared of making a mistake and who's going to get mad. There's like multiple times working in restaurants where I had to remind myself that literally no one's going to die tonight. Like just 100% no one's going to die. I think, at the restaurant I worked at too, one of their kind of number one rules was never run out of anything. And that was unique to the restaurant I worked at. And they made it kind of like pretty intense. Like if you were, the worst thing you could do is run out of anything on your station.
Okay.
And I would think about that a lot because the reality is as a, scared line cook who wants to perform well, I then, in order to not run out of anything on my station, am overstocking my station. But then at the end of the night, I'm throwing out just so much food. And so there was sort of a lot, my brain went crazy working in restaurants because, you know, anywhere from like communication, the way people just talk to each other, or like the way they try to express something like, hey, this tempura batter is too thick. They're more just like yelling like, this looks like shit. I don't know if I can swear, sorry. Like, and you're just like, I don't know what that means.
Right.
Can I get more of a clarification? So communication and stuff, that was definitely interesting. There's a lot, you know, that will, I'm sure, be changed in restaurants even more over time. But I got lucky. Like, I've heard horror stories of, like, chefs I worked for when they, you know, were working, say, 5-10 years before me in restaurants in France. They were getting, like, burnt by the chef next to them.
Wow.
Jeez, so it can be pretty intense back there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Wow.
And also it's all that system of like callbacks, and it's just very hierarchy. So it's like if you're like giggling and having fun on the line, that's not a good thing.
Not professional, I guess.
No, not at all. It's like, what's so funny, kind of.
Let's take a look at what we got here. Supplied by my-toronto.ca has provided some nice, wonderful food for us from local cuisine. So Tracy, I'm going to hand it over to you as to what is this that we're going to enjoy.
Actually,
Very well done, Gary.
I think I know what we're looking at here.
See what I did there?
I was wondering.
Definitely.
I actually heard your first job, Maddie, was working for a pickle company where you made pickles and ate pickles and packed pickles. So I'm a big pickle person, and my grandmother is Mennonite, and she passed down through generations her pickle recipe. Wow. And it's really, really simple, just onion, bay leaf, dill. So I thought I'd stick that on the table. You can eat it. Jeremy, you might have to open that jar.
Do you know, are these a saltwater pickle? Or
The brine is salt, sugar, vinegar, water.
Good. Love that. I worked, because when I worked in a pickle company, I kind of learned the difference between pickling and fermenting. And sort of the original pickle is all fermented. So I always ask, there's a fermented pickle, it's much better.
Yeah, cool.
I open that up.
Jeremy's gonna, I found it tough.
Yeah.
Actually won an award at the fair on these pickles.
You won an award,
I'm so proud of myself. Again, some people like the garlic. This is just very basic.
Very stressful feeding a chef.
I know, I'm a little stressed right now.
I love a pickle. Yeah. People are always scared to feed me, but I love
I know, I was thinking.
I love all food.
Okay, good. Well, let's get into the food, actually.
That's so good.
Yay. Have more. So on to the actual My Toronto food pick today, and I think Maddie knows what it is. So we have brought in pasta from Gusto 101, located at 101 Portland Street. Specifically, their Mafaldi ai funghi, which is one of the most beloved pastas in town, with their frilly, rough-cut noodles drenched in truffle cream sauce. A Toronto bucket list pasta that has become their top seller, and the owner herself, Janet Zuccarini, says the popularity of this dish has been ridiculous, even touted by Torontonians as the best pasta dish in the city. So there you go. Gusto 101 on Portland actually hailed from a previously dilapidated 1950s era auto body shop that took 3 years to transform into today's King West hotspot. The old shop is honored by the original beams and cinder blocks under a modern retractable glass rooftop and large garage door on the first floor. This place has a shout out by Toronto Life and Now magazines, with blog reviews consistently calling it a King West staple. After the show, we'll be diving into 2 more of Gusto 101's pasta dishes, the rigatoni amatriciana with guanciale, pomodoro romano, and black pepper, as well as the tagliatelle al ragu di manzo. Accompanying these mains will be the burrata with roasted grapes, aged balsamic, and pistachio, and the polpetti di carne, or meatballs made with lamb and beef, pomodoro, and ricotta.
And no candles.
And on the Riff, we always try to serve a locally roasted coffee from Toronto. And today's brew is Sam James Coffee Bar, who has several locations across the city. So back to the Riff table. I'm wondering how it's going over there. Any thoughts on Gusto 101? Maddie, I'm wondering if you know it.
I have so much I could say about Gusto 101.
Gusto.
I say Gusto, but I don't know if I'm right.
Mucho gusto.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm right, but I've always heard Gusto 101. I've been there so many times. Also, Nervosa, same owner, serves this pasta as well, and it's amazing. This pasta is probably like one of Toronto's most popular pasta dishes.
Is that right?
I knew what it was the second it came to the table.
Is that right? You can tell.
See, she's a pro.
I would say that I also grew up as a kid who was not very enamored by celebrities. I've never been a big like pop culture person, so my celebrities were like local Toronto restaurateurs.
Love that.
Janet Zuccarini is somebody I've looked up to since I was like 18.
That's it. Interesting.
And I've always I've always been a fan of her Instagram when I was younger, but also just like her whole journey. I know a lot about sort of her story and how she's had like the success that she's had.
Yeah.
Nervose has been around for over 20 years, which is
it's
a really hard feat for restaurants.
Right, yeah.
And so, it's very cool that you picked that today. I also love pasta, so it definitely speaks perfectly to
that
me.
was delicious.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I was saying to the guys, how am I going to feed Maddy Goldberg?
No, it's so good. It's so good.
Awesome. Okay.
Gusto
Great.
101, they did a good job.
Gusto
Yeah, that was
101.
fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, so when you're looking at food, then when you get what you get at the food bank, how are you putting that together? You know what I mean? In terms of what's the creation side of that, in terms of, okay, I am dealing with this and this and this today.
Yeah.
It's got to be
What's your
different every
plan?
day too, right?
Yeah, it's always changing. So I do this once a week. I normally have about 2.5 hours to make a meal for 100 people. That includes like conceptualizing the dish.
Wow.
And so typically I come in and I kind of do a little walk around. I spend probably the first 10 minutes just seeing what I have for the day. There's always certain ingredients that we know we're going to have. So things like eggs, milk, onion, potatoes, really simple stuff. But even beyond that, like oil, butter, we don't know necessarily what we're going to have. And it ranges a lot. I am one of the chefs that does this hot meal program. There are other chefs other days of the week that do it as well. And I find that probably out of everyone, I get the most joy out of really pushing ingredients kind of out of the box. And for that reason, I also often cook vegetarian just because every other day of the week they use meat in their hot meal, and I think I get a lot of pleasure out of just making something delicious that's vegetarian. So I normally start by picking one ingredient that excites me. But exciting at the food banks, eggs always excite me because I'm obsessed with eggs. But I think for me, it's something that I just don't see every week. So it would be like not eggs. It would be something like maybe a sweet potato or red pepper, like even simple produce. Especially if it's in season, I'll always go for that because I love working with like real ingredients.
Okay.
Alternatively, if I don't have anything exciting, I'll go for maybe like a sauce or something cool like that. And then I just build a dish off of like that one item. I kind of let my brain go from there.
Okay. That's interesting.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's got to be a challenge.
You're thinking on the spot. You got to have, the background and the know-how to put those ingredients together.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's not an easy task. That's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever had any kind of criticisms with that or anything like that would make people kind of question what you're doing, or is it more
trolling going on?
I was going to
like
say,
that?
what
Just
I
maybe
will
that.
say
You
is
can do
There's
anything.
always something in the comments.
Anything on the internet, it's
Yeah.
like there's always some negative guy.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable where people's brains go. I would say confidently, I've never received any negative feedback from anyone who's eating the meals.
That's awesome.
Oh, I've seen
all
the
the
food
negative
online.
feedback's coming from some guy with 0 followers
Right.
and a fake profile picture. And
Yeah.
The
just
food looks
getting their
good.
own pleasure out of trolling.
Yeah.
But I always, at the food bank, people are just so happy that I'm there. And I started volunteering at the food bank just to kind of reconnect with almost that like innocent side of cooking.
Right.
That side where it's unrelated to business. It's just something that I do for fun to feed people. And I could, go in and boil pasta and just like mix it with tomato sauce and put that up.
Right,
They
right.
don't really care as long as they make a hot meal. But for me, it's really fun to just create exciting meals. And then later on, just recently I started doing the videos and they really took off. But even like I've done so many different things on my Instagram. Even if the food bank videos didn't take off, I would just probably keep doing them because they're just fun for me.
They're just fun to do, because you're doing it for you, and that's great.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. And then what about for your private dinners? Like if someone's asking you to come and use their kitchen to do a private function at their house or wherever that is, I mean, what's the challenge there? Like you're in someone else's space.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Any nightmare stories of like somebody who can't relinquish control or like?
Yes. I've had this is what I'll say. I've had mostly really, really smooth, great experiences.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for 4 years. I've never had a problem that's like I'm unable to solve.
Yeah.
I think also something people don't realize when I go to their home, I know how many people I'm cooking for. I know what the menu is, and I've prepped all day for it. I'm also in an environment where no one's yelling at me. I have the whole
right.
kitchen to myself. It's quiet. It's calm.
So you're mostly just heating up.
Well, no, or there's some cooking involved. It's more that when you compare it to working in a restaurant,
it's a piece of cake.
Every variable that makes a restaurant difficult, like all the unknowns that are in a restaurant, you don't have with private dining. And then also, like, I'm my own boss. It's just like a really sort of like calm environment in comparison to what we were talking about. Like French kitchens can be insane. And so I often am sort of commended for how chill I am at like someone's house. And I always laugh because I think, if you just worked in a restaurant for one day and then you saw what I do now, it's very obvious how I am as calm as I am. And then when it comes to problem solving, if in a restaurant you have, say, 10 problems a day, private dinner, you have maybe one.
Right.
Like I'm
it's
not
a controlled environment. Yeah.
So the worst, the worst things I've had happen is, for example, the client is setting the table and she's pulling out 8 plates. And I look at her, I'm like, oh, it's only 7 tonight. She's like, no, it's 8. And I'm like, no, you definitely paid for 7. We'll like look on the menu. It's 7 guests, but she actually has 8 people coming.
Right.
Yeah.
And then normally, like at first, it's sort of like for them, they're like very like, oh my gosh, what will we do? But I'm very calm. I'm like, don't worry, just take a deep breath. I'll deal with it.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Worst case dinner will be 20 minutes late.
Yeah.
It's fine.
One last question I have for you in terms of, because I'm looking at the time, we should be wrapping up here soon because I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you're busy probably cooking up the next wonderful thing. Yeah. But in terms of the kitchen or even the private dinners kind of thing, what for the extra food that is left over at a restaurant, how do we manage that in terms of where does it go into the food banks and all that kind of stuff? Can you maybe elaborate on how is that managed? And can we make better use out of the food that isn't being fed to people?
Yeah, we got to do better with that. There's got to be a way to utilize some of that food that just gets chucked.
Yeah, I think in restaurants, before I worked in restaurants, I was obviously obsessed with food. And when I decided to start working in restaurants, I was warned by a lot of people that the reality of working in a restaurant, what you see in terms of food waste, is going to be scary and probably like change the way I think about working in food. And I remember thinking that those people, they don't understand, I know exactly what it's going to be like. I thought I'd watched enough cooking shows at that time. And truly, once I went into it and I was working on the line and in charge of the station and all the ingredients, and then also in charge of, disposing of everything at the end of the night, I would think like it's unbelievable how much gets thrown out, but also kind of like what and why. Like there was not so much thought put into kind of trying to reuse like small elements of a dish. For example, we had a dish for a while that was using only cilantro stems. So normally if you think about cilantro, the herb, you use the leaves. The stems actually have a lot of flavor. They're delicious. So we had a dish that used just the stems. So we would pick the leaves and then throw them out.
Oh, what a shame.
And keep the stems for the dish. But I would sit back and just think, one, in terms of just like financial model, I don't understand why you would throw out the leaves. Why not just use it in a different dish?
Right.
2, how could we possibly be throwing out the leaves? It made me so sad, and not reusing them. And so there's a lot of examples of that. And I used to think that if people actually probably understood the amount of waste, I think probably more change would come. But you could say that for, tons of different issues around the world. If people probably understood them more change would come. So I think for me, I just knew when I was working in restaurants very quickly, 1, I'm not going to open a restaurant. I will support a different food system. And 2, I knew if I'm working in French fine dining, I need to understand the other side of a food system, which is if, I'm on the side that, say, wastes the most, what's the side that tries to at least redistribute the waste the most? And that's food banks. So I always found sort of in my brain, or I always knew in my brain I would eventually work at a food or volunteer at a food bank. But I needed to kind of get out of restaurants because you don't really have the time when you're in restaurants. Yeah. I think to what you were saying, I think in terms of like, where does that change come from? I think just, obviously bringing more light to the amount of waste kind of makes people hopefully want to change and understand why they should. And then also separately, eventually push back or, other people saying like, we don't stand for this. Also helped. I love restaurants though. Like I have nothing against eating at restaurants. I think it was just like, if I'm going to go into something I love, which is food, I need to feel good about what I'm doing. And it was more coming from like feeding people versus this idea of like almost a sport like mentality, which is very restaurants, which is like pushing boundaries, winning accolades, working the hardest, being the best.
Well, there's a government element in it too with like Health Canada and all that stuff. And I know there's restrictions on once something's been opened, it can't be, so there's got to be some government intervention in there or some way to work with the restaurateurs. There's got to be a program you can create somehow.
It's interesting though, because I did learn recently, and this is so interesting to me, which is actually by a landslide, the most food that gets wasted is at the farm, and it makes sense. So it's food that doesn't even make it like into the city, or it's sort of like
ugly carrots and
exactly. Yeah. But I can only speak as the sort of side that I worked for, which was in fine dining, and you see how much gets thrown out, and it was sort of an alarming system, and I realized, oh wow, this is probably not something I'm going to spend a lot of time doing. It doesn't speak to me.
Well, listen, thank you very much. This has been fantastic. I have learned a lot today in terms of what you bring to the table.
Oh my God! It doesn't stop.
That one just came. I swear to God, I didn't even plan that one. I swear to God, that just came up.
He's just
But listen, I think the food industry and I think the culinary world of Toronto is in good hands with people like you, and I really love what you're doing. I really do. I think it means a lot that you bring your high skill, but you're also doing the social work and giving back. And I think that's such a beautiful blend. It really is. And I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you so much.
All right.
So great.
And if you want to find out more about Maddie here, you can go to her Substack, so cookeat.substack.com. TikTok, we can find you on Maddy Goldberg 1.
Yes.
And Instagram, your handle is @Maddy Goldberg.
Amazing.
All right. Anything else there? I got all that one?
No, that's beautiful. Okay. Thank you guys so much.
And thank you very much to Gusto 101 and my-toronto.ca for the fantastic pasta dish. That was amazing. So
crazy. Yeah, that was really great. A ton of fun having learning that side of it too, because again, I love the creative element and all that. And I like how that ties in with everything. And chefs are fascinating people because they're kind of animals. They're up all night. And they're like, a lot of people don't know how crazy chefs are. I'm not saying she is, but it's pretty wild. Yeah. Well, but anyway,
I think we got to boogie on out of here, and we'll wrap this one. And just remember, no one boogies up. You always boogie down. Okay. That's it for me. So Jared will end it here today.
Yep.
All right. So that's a goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from him.